Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Painted in Color podcast. I'm co-host Lauren Brown, joined by co-host Mia Araujo and Eric Wilkerson. Today, we are going to be talking about diversifying our income and seeing what different ways and streams we can use to make ourselves more secure as artists working in this very volatile world. So I know, Eric, you were talking about like particularly this topic in general and how you would speak about it and go about it. So I'm curious to hear from you, probably a little selfishly, how you go about diversifying your income. Let's start with you.
So, okay. So, I know that there's a lot of people that might be watching this that are in art school or came out of art school and were immediate rock stars. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. They found work in comics, animation, doing book covers, magic cards, whatever it was that they went to school for. It happened for them immediately or almost immediately. For the rest of us, we had to figure some stuff out. We had to work on our portfolio. We had to get our anatomy, our painting skills, whatever was deficient in our portfolio, we had to get it up to par so that we could compete for illustration work. But what about the select few that can't make a decision to save their life? Or they like more than one thing. They don't want to just do romance covers or sci-fi book covers or magic cards, or they don't want to just be a concept artist for some game studio. They want to get their work seen, you know, worldwide in a publication or by some in some other venue. That's the person I'm talking to. That's who I am. When I was in school, I knew I had more than one interest, and um, I had the pleasure of speaking with a really world-renowned illustrator back when I was in college named Vincent DeFate. He's a professor at Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, and he's like a Hugo award-winning, multi-award-winning sci-fi fantasy illustrator. Um, Back then, I remember him telling me that there are, and I quote, infinitely higher paying jobs than what you will do working as a sci-fi fantasy illustrator. And I thought, well, like what? So he starts listing off all of these different things you can do in the arts. Um, and I took the time to research that and figure out, okay, well, if this doesn't immediately happen for me, if I show my portfolio and somebody says to me, you're not good enough, not yet, you're okay, but you're no rock star just yet. You might be good enough to do, you might be good enough to work in advertising. You might be good enough to do concept art. You might be good enough to do storyboarding, children's books, whatever, right? At some level, your portfolio is good enough to do tiers of different things, but not quite what you want to, where you want to be. And that's where I feel like having multiple sources of income comes in, or diversifying your income comes in, because if you do get, I guess to say, if you do get to the promised land, like you do land that dream job or that dream career, what happens if the bubble pops? What happens if all of a sudden your work goes out of fashion, or the art directors stop calling, or you say or do the wrong thing that turns off people? What happens next? And I've seen illustrators jump right out of school. They land an agent, they land representation doing one specific thing. And it's nonstop work, steady for the next decade until it isn't. And then they start panicking because they didn't have a backup. They didn't have anything else in their portfolio. They didn't have any other idea of what they could do artistically besides that one thing that they went to school for. And so when I was in school, I took classes in storyboarding. I took classes for children's book illustration. I took Photoshop classes for like photo retouching, basic stuff like that. And while working up toward the kinds of illustration jobs that I eventually did end up getting, I had to apply for casino gaming company jobs or advertising agency jobs or things that were just a job. It was not something I was passionate about, but it was something that I could say, yeah, I could do that. And that allowed me to branch out into other types of artwork that in some cases paid infinitely more than what I could make as a sci-fi fantasy illustrator. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, is kind of future-proofing your portfolio, thinking ahead of time, what happens if, worst case scenario, things slow down or that job that you really, really liked ends, then what?
Yeah, I'm definitely the kind of person who thinks about this a lot. As somebody who, doesn't exactly I don't come from a bunch of money. I had student loans when I went to college, and I still have student loans now. And I feel like a lot of the first part of my career was dedicating myself to making enough money to one day be able to pay them off. And so in order to do that, starting out in the industry, but with a job that didn't pay that well, I immediately sought different ways to diversify and make myself flexible enough to be able to do various different things. So, when I was just starting out into the industry, I was working full time as a background artist at an animation studio. And then I was also doing freelance for various clients just around Atlanta. And I found these clients by doing conventions, which is also another stream of income that I had. And conventions, if anybody doesn't realize or know already, is a great way to meet prospective clients. It's a great way to meet people who are interested in your work and who would want to hire you for the future. And so what that had done was set me up pretty fairly steadily with a network of people who I could freelance with on a pretty regular basis. And at the same time still working full-time in animation. But also having the contingency plan of if anything ever happened to animation, I would be able to jump over to working in games per se, or working just as a freelance illustrator with conventions. And just I found different ways to make sure that I had different plans, so that if anything had happened, I wouldn't be left out to dry. I really tried to make sure that I was going to be secure no matter what, because I knew how this industry was. And I never assume that I'm secure in any job that I have, which has recently served me very well. So right now, the different ways that I have diversified my income were to not only look at the things that I could do as a freelancer, as an illustrator, as a convention artist, as just creating my own personal work, but also having different avenues that I could get into. I'm oh, I could be a consultant for these various studios. That's a potential thing. Oh, I could be a professor for, a school. That could be a thing I could do. So it's thinking not only about what you can do as an artist, but also the things that you can do outside of being an artist. What kind of skill sets are particular to you? What are you good at? Because you'll then be able to see where you can put your different eggs in your baskets. Because in this industry, putting all of your eggs in one basket is usually not a solid plan. You have to find various different ways to do that. So, I touched on everything pretty basically, but we can get into more detail of how, I approach these different kinds of streams of income. Because I never was the kind of artist to pigeonhole myself into one thing. Even when I was at SCAD, I was in the illustration department, but I was doing sequential art classes and working on student films and animation. I never had just one thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of explore and do all of them. And so that, that works to my benefit because I have my focuses. But if I ever needed to branch out and go other places, like, making the switch from animation to games, or doing a comic for a freelance job, I'm still able to do those things, and still able to do them fairly well. So it definitely has worked to benefit me, and I feel like that's definitely going to be continuing to be put to the test as I go forward. And Mia, I'm curious to hear from you too. Have you really tried to do this? Like, what's your experience been like with diversifying?
I mean, I was definitely one of those people that put all the eggs in one basket in the beginning, like the first 5 years out of school.
Mhm.
And it was exactly what Eric was talking about, that it's like there was like a gallery bubble, of people that were buying and collecting a lot of art during that time. And then there was the bubble burst, and there weren't as many sold out shows or people buying art in that gallery world that I was in. But it was interesting, like right out of school. And I think even when I was in school, I was really focused on building my skills and to make the kind of art I wanted to make, and trying to figure out what like my style was. Pretty much all the stuff that students are fixated on in school tends to be very, navel gazy, and just about the art itself, as opposed to a career, building a sustainable career and stuff like that. At least it was for me. I shouldn't speak for anyone else, but getting to establish what my art style was like within 5 years out of school was a good thing, like that I focused on that. But the bad thing was that once that income went away, I kind of didn't have anything. And being a self-employed artist as well, you don't have anything on your resume that makes it very easy to get hired anywhere else. And so yeah, I've talked about this many times on previous episodes, so I won't go too much into it, but I decided to go the non-art route in terms of just trying to bridge the gap of where I was going to go next with my art and paying the bills in the meantime. Just doing retail and service industry jobs for about 6 years, and working on my art part-time. And that was really difficult. But I think the main reason why I chose that is that I didn't want to create a portfolio of art that I didn't want to do to get to an art job that I didn't want to be at just to pay the bills. I wanted to keep my relationship with my art pure, I guess, or like at least something that I enjoyed. And so I was willing to do like 30 to 40 hours, even 60 hours a week at one point, doing stuff that was not art. And that's that's kind of the toss up though, is like there's some parts of your career where you might not actually be getting to focus as much on the skills you want to build in order to make income. And that was the hardest part. I think that it does feel like in retrospect, like a lot of that time could have been spent building my skills some more. But bills had to be paid. And so I couldn't make that decision, I learned a lot though from putting all my eggs in one basket back then. And ever since then have, branched off into like doing conventions, doing online store, doing Patreon. Now I'm writing and illustrating my own books and stuff like that. And for me, it's just been sort of dictated by like the necessity at the time, like what I chose to do, I guess, with my career. And I just wish it had been more like planned out, I guess, from the beginning. But even if you're not somebody who planned it out in the beginning, it's okay. You can correct course at any point and figure something out that works for you. So
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because a lot of people, I think, they believe that when they choose a path, that's the path that they have to stick with.
yeah.
And it's so far from the truth. Even though things feel like they're permanent when you're in the moment, you really have the full flexibility to go in a different direction if you're not happy. And I'm hearing you talk too, and I wish I had the wherewithal or like the kind of like fortitude to be able to be like, oh, I want to keep my relationship with my art pure. And I never like really, that never even occurred as a thought to me, because I was just operating from the stance of desperation. And, I think that like after all the years of, diversifying my income and like chasing all these different avenues, that did get me burned out. And like it took me a while to like really start enjoying doing my own art again, just because I had spread myself so thin doing my art for other people. And so like even though it was like not easy all the time for you, I still appreciate that you had stuck with yourself as the artist first and foremost of your own personal work, and not like for anybody else. So I just thought that was a really cool thing that you had mentioned. I wanted to point that
Yeah,
out.
I did the polar opposite of that. I went through, I was given a copy of Graphic Artists Guild, Pricing and Ethical Guidelines
Oh
book
yeah.
back in college, and just
What edition
went,
was that?
oh man, I don't know, like 12, 9, something like that,
God.
long time ago.
Wow.
But just went through the book and really just looking for, okay, what is the highest paying illustration? What are the highest paying illustration jobs? And saying, okay, well, am I capable of doing that, or do I have any interest in doing that? Working for different advertising agencies, doing storyboarding, children's books, all that stuff. And then you scroll down and you go to what they were paying book cover illustrators, and that price hasn't changed in 20 years.
Wow.
You know, inflation and how like cost of living has gone up, but the prices, the rates for illustration haven't changed for certain markets. So you have to start thinking about, okay, well, where else?
Yeah.
What else do I have to do to survive? And the part that messes me up, and I think I've mentioned this in a previous episode, is that when the tastes change, the industry changes, the art directors change, whatever the company does changes enough that your art, it looks dated or not in fashion anymore, you still have rent or mortgage, children's tuition to pay, whatever, you still have bills. So what happens to the illustrator that is in their 60s but still has to work? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And I always punk out of asking that question when I see an illustrator, like one of my heroes in person, unless I know that they're teaching somewhere like an online school or something like that. Then you go, okay, there's another source of income.
Yeah.
Right? They still have to eat.
Yeah.
You know, the big name book cover company may not be calling them up nonstop, but they still have bills. So, all right. So Lauren, you were talking about convention sales.
Yes.
You know, for a lot of traditional painters, there's also an aftermarket for a lot of the illustration work that they do, especially if they're doing that work traditionally. And getting that email from some random collector who appreciated a painting that you did 15, 20 years ago and says, do you still have that? You know, it happens. Yeah. And so that's a whole other market to dive into. But you know, there's online sales, having your own web store. I've talked to people that make a killing just selling magnets and stickers and stuff like that. Well, I mean, it's like smutty anime stuff. But like somebody's like, I got $5 for that, times however many thousands of people.
Listen, there's no judgment. Actually, the Patreons that are, I think, some of the most successful are the ones that are catering to the more adult tastes and audiences. So, you know, like there's various ways that you can tailor a Patreon to that audience. Yeah. So, you know, if there's anybody out there listening who does that kind of art, then, you know, pop off and have fun. Patreon is a great venue for you. A lot of them like do the sneak previews and stuff. They're like, oh, I'm not showing you everything. It's all on your Patreon. I don't know anything specifically about that. But like, I think that that's a good way to do it too. I'm still trying to figure out how to get good at Patreon. I'm not good at it yet. And I think it's mostly just because I always spread myself really thin. The thing you got to watch out for that we always talk about is the burnout aspect of it when you're diversifying your income. So try to balance your schedule as much as you can with that. There's other episodes where we discuss that. But I think that having to maintain all of these things, like you definitely have to have a strategy if you're going to do them at the same time. because I think there's two different ways to go about diversifying income. Like one way is to do it kind of like all at the same time and have your different avenues functioning all at once. And the other way to do it is to have some backup plans if your first plan A does not succeed, or doesn't go across it the way you needed it to. So, just wanted to call that out as like there's a way to distinguish it there. And so like I'm definitely functioning on like the kind of like A type where I'm just trying to do everything all at once. And I know it has its own drawbacks, but I do enjoy it because like as you're just going along in life, those online sales will rack up. You do a certain promotion that racks up. You sell a special edition of prints or like pins or things like that that racks up. And so all of these things can help to create like this greater, pool of income that is your safety fund. So that if your job falls through or if, your house roof caves in, you have ways to support yourself without having to be completely, left out to sea. But I think it requires a lot of strategy. And so like, what is the strategy that you, like either of you kind of like go about diversifying and making sure that these income streams are actually profitable?
Well, just to piggyback off of what you were saying just a second ago about doing it all at once.
Mhm.
When I started out, I had like a 70-30 rule. Like 70% of my energy was going toward strengthening my skills and building up the portfolio that I wanted for the
Mhm.
work I wanted to do. And the other 30% was dabbling in experimenting with 3D animation programs, learning 3ds Max, Maya, at the time, Flash, Adobe Flash,
Flash.
playing around with programs and dabbling in the kind of stuff that I knew advertising agencies would dabbling in the kind of stuff that would make me look good to an advertising agency, because I was in New York City, and those different agencies pay a lot for a minimal amount of work. It's ridiculous, like how little effort goes into some of that stuff. But yeah, if you can knock out some storyboards in a day, that pays your rent for the month, especially in New York City, done. And so I spent my time building up that stuff on the side, like just in between other jobs. But what I ended up doing was I ended up hopping from one studio job to another for a number of years, working from within animation to advertising agencies and back and forth, different game studios, while trying to build up the portfolio for the work I wanted to get. So doing the staff job, any random freelance I could, and convention sales were my three sources for many years. And just a variety of different types of illustration, not just sci-fi fantasy, but anything where I could say, yeah, I could do that. I may never show it on my portfolio and on my website, but I know that it helped pay my rent.
Yeah.
So
there are so many jobs that have never made it on my portfolio. So many jobs. I actually need to put more on my portfolio because I'm like looking through my old folders and realizing how much I've done and also how much I didn't post. And I'm like, I could have probably posted that. Like, I should probably put that on my portfolio website.
yeah.
But I also make it a point not to post art that I don't want to do. So if there's freelance jobs that I didn't want, like I don't share that. Like if there's graphic design that I did, I don't want to do graphic design. I'll do it for like if it's a special thing, but I'm not going to advertise something that I don't want to do.
Right. Now, I won't put it on my website, but if I absolutely had to go looking for that kind of something that was just a job, I have a PDF file that has all of my matte painting, the year or two that I was just doing nothing but matte paintings. or the year or two where I was doing nothing but photo collage work for like pharmaceutical ad agencies. I have enough random stuff out that I've done in my career where I could say, yeah, I could do this. And if I had to do it again, here's a PDF I could send to the creative director as proof, but it's not going on my website.
Yeah.
The website is aimed specifically at that, that 70% per, amount that I was focusing on. So,
That's a good strategy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I internalize this stuff and I think, well, why couldn't I have been the rock star person that just came right out of school and it was just immediately like, oh my God, we love you and all that stuff, and was just busy doing nothing but what I actually went to school for. But I kind of feel like I wouldn't have appreciated it if it had all come too fast. Like I hustled.
Yeah.
I had to hustle every single year to not just prove to myself, but to my parents that I didn't waste their money. And I don't know, I wouldn't have changed a thing, because I think it's being able to speak. I'm in a position now where I'm able to speak on multiple types of illustration and avenues, different avenues that an illustrator can take in their career, because I've practically done them all, with the exception of maybe visual development for animation. I've done them all. And it's just like really just stumbling from one thing into another because I needed to eat.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's kind of where I want to end up too, is just like doing it all, because I've already worked in animation. I've worked in games. I've been an individual contributor, baseline artist, as well as manager, art director. And there's more that I want to explore. I'm like, oh, like, should I go back into being an individual contributor and like going up to principal artist and getting good at that? Or do I want to continue to like grow my career into being an art director? Like, do I want to continue to to do that while teaching? Like, there's so many different options that are open right now, but I want to try all of them. I want to do a comic one day, like I want to make an illustrated novel. That I want to maybe get back into animation even, like, and, see if I'm still any good at animation. I think that it's a path that's like never ending as an artist, because there's infinite things to explore, because you're never going to know how to do everything. And if you're curious enough, and if you have the desire to do it, then I would encourage anybody listening to do that. Because again, like, if you build those skills for fun, or if it's for necessity, either way, it can all go back into that pool of the things that you can pull from if you ever need to. And sometimes on the way, you might find that you really fall in love with something that you didn't expect to fall in love with. One of my friends I know, she was a UI artist in games, which is basically the interface, the graphic design of a game. And she had discovered that she actually loved visual effects. And so she started growing her career as a VFX artist, and, got hired at this big company, doing that now, and she loves it. So, you never know what is out there and like what you can like grab onto. Because again, the possibilities are endless as long as you're willing to explore them. And that's a really important way to like diversify your skill set and diversify your income.
yeah, I learned the hard way that I should stay as far away from graphic design, user interface design as possible, because it drains me.
Yeah.
Emotionally, because whenever I'm doing it, whenever I'm creating those kind of assets, or just rendering the crap out of letters, I keep thinking I'm a classically trained oil painter. And I'm like, what in the hell? Why am I messing around with a pen tool right now? I just thought, why did I say yes to this? Oh, that's right, it pays a lot.
Mhm.
But you have to, even though we're saying diversify your income, at some level, you have to enjoy it. You
Yes.
have to be able to say, that's not going to feel like I'm a garbage man or something like that. You know, it's, even though that's a respectable thing, somebody needs to do it.
Great
But you
career.
know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to do it just for the money. There should be some level of interest there. Otherwise it's going to be torture. So
yeah. I completely agree with that. I think that like just like what you described, if you're screaming out in your brain while doing something that you absolutely hate, it's a sign that like maybe look for something else. And I think this is of course a benefit to people who have had more experience in the industry, to be able to look for different avenues that they actually do enjoy, because they have the confidence that the thing they enjoy can get them the money that they need. Some people, when they're starting out, do not have that necessity, and I completely understand that. But I feel like the moment that you can, if you feel like you are being tortured every day, that you're trying to do a job that you really hate, even if it pays the bills, I think there's nothing wrong with exploring where you can go while you're in that job that you hate. And if you have to stick with it, like it's unfortunate, but it's you have to do what you have to do to survive. But I always recommend people to just kind of explore and just see what else is out there, for that job that they hate, for the job that's not treating them well, that's being mismanaged, that's not paying them enough. Because like there's no better reminder of like knowing what you're worth, like while you're looking for other things, and because it can really elevate you, and you can see what you can actually be doing that you might actually enjoy a lot more, with a pay that you may enjoy. Who knows? For me, it's like starting to become like not about the money anymore. After kind of like chasing it for like 6 years, I'm realizing that it's definitely not what makes me happy. It makes me secure. It gives me the ability to be more flexible. But I'm like starting to get to the point where I feel like I've done my time, and I just like I want to just be happy with my art again. And again, like all the foundation that I've laid for myself is like there to serve to benefit me. But again, that takes time, and that takes a lot of energy as well. So it's really like, I think it's important to be able to gauge what you have the energy for, what you have the capacity for, and within just your power, how you can use that to your best benefit.
Yeah, and what your priorities are, like you just said. I think that a lot of the choices you'd make in terms of diversifying your income are very specific to what your life is and what you need right now. And that might change in 10 years. For people that just want to make their own work, like their own ideas, there's just so much money that you need in order to fund that. You know what I mean? Like especially if you want an entire career of that. And I didn't know that when I left school. And I wish that I had. And it seems like such a no-brainer, but it's just like you think, oh, if I'm passionate about it, people will buy my work. That's what you're told. But it's not that easy. Like the passion is required, but it's not a guarantee that you'll succeed at what you're doing just because you love what you're doing. So I guess I would just suggest to anybody that has a very specific thing they want to be doing, and it's for a very niche audience, that they have to be willing to do jobs maybe that they don't love in order to build up that income. And honestly, for me, like I agree with Eric, like I would not have changed my path in any way, even though I was doing non-art jobs for so long. Honestly, like the experiences, the stories I got out of all those years, I would not trade them for anything in the world. And especially if you want to be writing and creating your own stories, if you have a public facing job, like that is such great inspiration. So I would actually encourage people to do that, even if that's not something they would enjoy on a day-to-day. Just like that at least got me through the day, was getting to kind of people watch and stuff like that, and observe the world and stuff. So in a way that I wouldn't in my studio, But yeah, I guess that's the biggest lesson for me, just in hindsight, is just like how much diversifying of income you would need as an artist that just wants to create their own images and stories and stuff, because the skills alone take so long to develop. And like you said, Eric, there's so many changes in the industry and tastes and all that kind of stuff that you have no control over. So yeah, it just either be a jack of all trades at some point, or just be willing to pivot as much as possible, but and learn as many new programs or tools or ways to streamline your process. Like all those things I think honestly help. And I guess also the last thing I'll say about that is the way I see diversifying income as somebody who does personal work mostly is you're trying to diversify the way that to like reach as many audiences as possible. So not just artists, there's a publishing world, and then there's comics, and there's all these different, audiences for art, and just figuring out which ones your art kind of lines up. There's so many different avenues that you can pivot to like show your work to more people. It's just about seeing what matches with what you want to do and like what your vision is. But yeah, that stuff takes time.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing too, is like your vision, like what you want to do, because your artistic voice is going to dictate a lot of what this looks like for, each individual person.
Yeah.
Because like what my plan is for myself would not necessarily be what you would do, would not necessarily be what Eric would do. But my plan, I feel like, makes sense for me, and only me. So, whoever might be listening and is like not sure how to go about it, it's like, think about all the things that you enjoy doing, and like really actually like want to keep doing. Some of those things can stay a hobby, by the way. Like, I'm not saying make every single thing that you love into a stream of income, because that's it's like the fastest way to just make yourself really sad. But it's like, I think knowing what you are willing to, put on the line to make money off of, and do keep some of your hobbies, because you don't want to get to the point where you're burned out on your hobbies and you don't enjoy them anymore. So like, this is just like, this mainly is really to survive and make sure that you are secure as an artist, first and foremost. But, whatever that plan is for you, what I do for myself is I write it down in my notebook, and I wrote down all the things that I actually enjoy doing, and potential things I could turn into income, and things that I want to keep for myself as the things that I just, are for me. And then I like broke down like, okay, what is my target audience and what do they want? And how do I kind of align each of these things to those audiences, so that I know somebody's out there to appreciate and want that work. What kinds of income can I make that I don't have to actively work on? Like Patreon obviously is like, I have to work on Patreon, but it's something that you can update like once or twice a month, and that gives you like a steady stream every month. If you put your like comics or stories or something on Gumroad, that's another way that you can do a one and then done. You have it somewhere where people can buy it and access that without you really having to supervise that. My Etsy store, even though I have to obviously ship and fulfill those orders, I've made the art already. All I have to do is fulfillment, which takes a surprising amount of time, but it's still much less time than it is to make a whole new piece. So, like there's various different things that each of those things can give you. But it's just really how you balance that for yourself and what that looks like for yourself. But if you really want to get into doing this, I would recommend just starting with your lists and kind of like plotting out like what kind of course you want to make for yourself. And when something doesn't work, feel free to scrap it and replace it with something else. Because not everything is going to work out right the first time, and it may not work out right the entire time. And it's okay to pivot that plan. You're totally free to do that. But it's really what works best for you.
Yeah. I when I was fresh out of school, I made a list of every publisher I would like to work with. Then I became more aware of visual effects studios and their needs for illustrators. So I started writing down all of these different visual effects studios that were based in New York, Canada, California. But when we're talking about diversifying income, that is not 100% just about art. I mean, diversifying your income is just having another source of income outside of your art.
Yeah.
So if you're teaching, if you're an art director, if you are a nurse, or whatever it might be, that is a secondary or tertiary form of income, period. Diversifying your portfolio is a whole other thing, where you are making a living off of your art, your home. You're not having to bounce around to other things, but you are able to say to a client, yeah, I can do more than just this. I can do a bunch of other types of illustration, or I think of an illustrator named Dean Cornwell. And Dean Cornwell had multiple styles. He could do pen and ink line drawing. He could do caricatures. He was an amazing oil painter. Did all kinds of narrative illustrations, and he could also do murals. He bounced back and forth through all of these different styles over the course of his career, so that if one thing slowed down, he could say, yeah, I could do that. There was always something else for him to be able to do, so that he didn't run around going, oh my God, like they don't want me for the Saturday Evening Post or whatever the magazine might be. What am I going to do now? Like, that's not cool. That's not a good place to be, especially if you've got a family to support.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do now? That is never a question you want to have floating in your head, like nonstop, if the bubble were to pop. So this is what this is all about.
Definitely.
And I just wanted to say that there's no greater incentive to bust your ass to make your dreams come true than to be told by your retail job, you are banned for life from applying to any Walmart in America.
Oh, God.
I was like, fine, I want to be here anyway.
Right.
So if everything goes south for me, I would go to Costco, I guess. I don't know.
Go to Target.
Are they a
Target,
Sam Walton
yeah.
company? I don't know. I'm on the list.
I think Target pays their employees $24 an hour now. It's not bad.
Did they really? Oh
Yeah, I
my
think
God.
so.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah, listen, there's always a backup plan.
there's always a backup plan except for Walmart.
Except for Walmart. Walmart is out of the plan.
It's out.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I was just like, like I wonder, I enjoy baking a lot. I was like, I wonder if I could just like go to markets every Sunday and like sell, cream puffs or cookies or things like that. I was like, I feel like desserts and stuff like that always probably sell, and I have my own twist on them. So I'm like, if all else fails, maybe I could just like bake or just like maybe sell my plants that I raise.
Bake it, do the packaging, the whole bit.
Make it all cute. It's like, I'm an artist, I can still do that. take the really nice photos,
Yeah.
Show process videos of me putting the whipped cream on everything,
Oh my
like
God,
chocolate.
Yeah.
See, you like that.
I do.
Right.
I can see it.
It
Have
sprinkles like the
whole little
salt bay,
social
just like
media thing with the
yeah.
dancing on your reels and
Yeah.
Yeah.
dropping whipped cream from one scene to the other, and you're just catching it in another room and stuff like that. Like, I don't know how they do that, but it's stupid.
It's crazy.
I'm
Yeah.
actually glad you brought up Reels though, because actually that is something that we haven't talked about, is like the streaming or like the social media side of
Oh, yes.
stuff. And there's a lot of artists that are really good at monetizing that. I'm
Yeah.
not, and it's like, it's good to know that about yourself, because I think there are a lot of artists that think, diversify my income, I have to do everything and try everything. And you should try everything to see if you're any good at it. But if you don't actually enjoy doing it, that's something I've learned by listening to a lot of people who are really popular, TikTok influencers or whatever. You have to love that thing. You have to love making videos, editing videos. If you don't, you will not last, and you won't monetize it as well as people who do love doing it. So there is that piece to it as well.
But how are they monetizing it? What are they like? This video is brought to you by like Gillette, or like how are they? What are they promoting something?
I think it's like they get a big enough following that people, like brands, come to them, right, and sponsor them because they have the reach. It's just like Instagram, where they build their following, and YouTube as well, right? They build such a big following that brands come to them and try to sponsor them so that they can get in front of their viewers.
Yeah, on YouTube there's advertisements. Instagram actually pays people for their reels. I think you can be in a bonus program, which I've gotten messages about before. They'll pay like a certain amount if your reels reach a certain amount of audience. Companies will approach a lot of people who do a really good job at the videos, and will pay them to do that. I think TikTok has a similar thing too. There's just a lot of different ways that you can get noticed for doing things that you love, but the keyword is what you love.
Yeah.
Because I'll be damned if I haven't tried to do it for years and years and said, next year I'm going to be better at posting on social media, consistently every day while putting on my clown makeup, because I know it's not going to happen. It never happens ever. So maybe it's just not for me. I don't know. But for the people who are really good at that, be really good at that, because that's a great way to get your name out there, and you never know who's watching. You know, like even with my horribleness of posting on social media, like I've talked about my previous success on Twitter, and posting with hashtags. So, you know, you never know who's going to notice your stuff, whether or not you're good at it. But if you're good at it, then that's a really good thing for you. And it's also too diversifying how you post, because algorithms are always changing. And I've seen a lot of artists, you know, getting really upset and sad about the fact that, you know, such and such social media platform, their algorithm is changing. They're not getting the reach that they used to. So it's like, you know, we also have to figure out all the time how to be flexible and how to adapt to the ever-changing landscape of forever. Because by the nature of our careers, it's a luxury thing. So, you know, like we always have to be chasing something, because it's not like a necessity, even though it totally is. You saw what happened over the pandemic. People consumed a ton of art and media, but you know, society at large doesn't see us as a necessity. And so we have to continuously figure out how we're going to chase after that ourselves. So it takes the extra effort, and however that works for you is how it works for you. All right. I mean, I think that was pretty good. And I feel like we still only just scratched the surface about what this could mean. So please leave in the comments or in the chat if you want to hear more about diversifying income, if you want more specifics on how to like go about these different things. You know, please feel free to leave it in the comments, feel free to put it in the chat, or feel free to put it in our Facebook group, the Painted in Color podcast discussion group. We're still posting on there. We're still active on our Twitter, on our Instagram, the PIC podcast. You know, go ahead and follow us. And also please feel free to, you know, comment, like, subscribe, smash that like button. Yeah, right. I don't know where it is. Right?
Somewhere down there.
I don't know. I'm not good at this yet. I don't know if you can tell. But above all, you know, thank you so much for joining us as usual. And I hope you found this helpful. But if you leave a comment, that really helps our reach. So we would definitely appreciate that. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And I definitely learned a lot in this talk, and it made me think about a lot of things. So thank y'all too for like sharing your insights, because like this is always inspiring for me. I do it very selfishly. And like now I'm like very driven to like, you know, really be intentional about what I'm doing. So thank y'all, and thank you for joining us. Bye everybody. I can't see my hand. There we go.